at Creative Mornings Chicago at Creative Mornings, and then hashtag CM Shy, hashtag CM Parallel. Without further ado, I'm gonna bring up our phenomenal speaker, Bryn McCoy. She is an incredible creative leader and designer, and she's gonna share all about her journey and the parallels within them. So give a round of applause for our incredible speaker, Bryn McCoy.
It's my power song. Okay. All right. Well, this is a long time coming. Anybody else ever spend years in the studio working behind the scenes only to recently meet an astrologer who tells you, you're a Leo. You love the stage. I'm a Leo rising, and maybe I love the stage. We'll see how this goes. I'm Bryn McCoy. I have a lot of notes, a lot of things I want to share with you today. It's wow, seeing you all here. Thank you for coming. So we're going to talk about living lives in parallel. Not only are we all living parallel in this community, parallel to this gorgeous coastline, parallel to the Chicago stormy skies this morning, we have parallel lives that we're each living individually. I may have been invited here because I have this multidisciplinary professional path. I started, let's see here, let's do some slides. I almost always start decks that I get to design myself with a scene of Chicago. It's my thing. Okay, so I started learning to code, fortunately, between 3rd and 4th grade. I wanted to be a computer programmer, of all things. But I've always had these parallel paths of the practical and the poetic. And it's been this mainstay, but it's hard to kind of figure out how to fit things in when it feels like it's divided. I ended up being trained as a software engineer, but I noticed that I was a little more concerned with the deep cultural impact of my work than many of my peers. Cared a lot about craftsmanship, found my way into design. Then I realized to make exquisite things, you actually need a lot of resources. So I found my way into business leadership. I was intensely motivated to connect all these dots because I had a sense that creativity is the measure of a life well lived. It also opened a lot of doors. But the thing that really got my attention was these moments where my work seemed to strike a chord, both within me and around me. And I would notice that after that would happen, I would have this burst of energy, and it would tend to move me in a different direction. When you move in these new directions, it feels a little pivotal, but you also move with some skepticism. And I think the enthusiasm, can help us move over this hump, right? Some of you may have seen the shout out about my work with Oprah. That was one of those moments, and there were a lot of amazing things about that work. However, one of the I think most special parts of that process for me was how it all came together. I'd been developing this little design studio in that era of my life. I had tiny children trying to find a better work-life balance, and one of those late nights, my 6-month-old daughter was up, couldn't sleep. I was stressed out. I had a big meeting the next day, knew I should definitely be sleeping, and flipped on the TV, tried to distract myself, and found this documentary. On the Oprah Winfrey Network, she and her team had gone to Fairfield, Iowa. This is a pretty tiny town, 9,000 people. 5,000 of them come together twice a day and sit in meditation. In Iowa, of all places. This blew my mind. And Oprah came back from that experience and built this meditation program in her Chicago studio. And so I remember thinking how amazing to integrate mindfulness into professional community in that way, to integrate it into the workday, on the clock. it blew my mind. And so the next day, I get a call from a recruiter inviting me to consider this role as a product manager. I hesitated because I didn't consider myself to be a product manager. Many things, software engineer, web designer, small business owner, not a product manager. So she mentions, this is for the Oprah Winfrey Network, and we actually think your collection of experiences is exactly what they're looking for. I was gobsmacked. Sometimes when synchronicities like this pop up, it's the enthusiasm and the curiosity that moves you toward it, even if you feel that it's not your thing. So I took the job. It was indeed a fit for a while. That's the thing about creative work, is we tend to be on this edge. And so we remind each other to get comfortable with discomfort, to fail forward, to be resilient. So I think we tell each other these things because there is this gnarly part of the creative process. And we have to keep working into things that we're uncertain about. We have to do a lot of things, sometimes publicly, before we even know what we're doing. So one of my last projects with the Oprah Winfrey Network was with Bryn when she was going viral for her talk about shame research. And I hadn't actually listened to her TED Talk. I worked backstage. So I was back there just getting the social media feed onto the screens on set. And I heard her say that vulnerability was at the heart of creativity. And that moved me. I mean, in fact, it moved me to tears. I was like tearing up. Okay, I'm at work. I need to pull this together. But, truths sometimes do that to us. We recognize them. It's kind of heavy. And she went on to explain that vulnerability is not about winning or losing. It's about having the courage to show up and be seen. I still work in the innovation niche, and I think of it as high stakes, high value, highly critiqued work, and it's not easy to be vulnerable. But buttoned up creative culture, I think it's holding us back. And it really is disappointing to see how many resourceful studios are delivering pretty derivative work. We're also starting to see a lot of our systemic infrastructure crumble. We can see it with government, finance, healthcare, education. The good news about breakdowns is they tend to be a prerequisite for breakthroughs. And creatives are specially trained and extraordinarily skilled at bringing breakthrough work into the world. Okay, so how do we do it? There are a few things, and one of them starts with living into our values. Basically, when we want to lead an important conversation, we have to own it. If you're going to own it, you have to care about it. And we don't all care about the same things. In fact, we only really care about one or two things. There's one or two things that are going to trigger us, piss us off enough that we're going to say no, that we're going to have a conversation that might be hard to have. I think that's important, especially right now. A lot of people don't do it. I think everybody in this room, just by the nature of being creative, is likely to have a conversation that's hard to have. I think a lot of people do those things in parallel. Maybe have the one part of the life that is yours and the one part of the life that is kind of wearing the mask to show up in public. I think the journey is to try and integrate those as much as possible. I'm deeply concerned not just about innovation. I'm deeply concerned about the future of humanity. So I think that figuring out how we bring our voice and what we care about to everything that we do is mission critical right now. Okay. The second step that's a little lighter is creating a learning culture. And I think this is the work that we often do collectively. Peter Senge, one of my favorite teachers about this, talks about how we take our internal pictures and share them. We envision what we want to see, and we bring people together to communicate about that. We facilitate conversations and encourage people to suspend their assumptions and just enter into an actual exploratory conversation, a shared experience of learning. That's how we end up cultivating a shared vision. And if you are co-creating with people, they'll come with you. That's the best way. That's the best way to lead. The last part is personal mastery. And this is my favorite part because it really is the foundation for everything. In fact, all of my work just keeps moving more and more into how do you guide people into their own personal mastery. So when we can continually clarify what's important to us and have the focus and discipline to develop it, the hard part ends up being, what are we developing? How are we cultivating our vision? And over the past several years, I've been finding my way into integral psychology as a means, as a set of tools and resources to really understand what is bubbling beneath the surface. Once we start to realize that we can get excited about things and we have tools to start collectively bringing things to life, it becomes more and more important, what we're bringing and why. So in depth psychology, we explore unconscious patterns from both a cultural and ancestral dynamic. And our psychological constellation are these moments where the unconscious bubbles up and is actualized in our conscious awareness. So when we kind of connect, when we make this union of our unconscious and our conscious, essentially that's our self-realization. Those are the aha moments. Those are the synchronicities that we recognize. Like, this is important to me. I sense this curiosity. I sense this enthusiasm. And in putting those together, you start to see the path of your life, but it's something that we can usually only see in retrospect. It feels like a cosmic joke that we can't see ahead. We have to just keep taking these bold steps without knowing with any certainty where we're going. But in taking those steps, this is the path of becoming our favorite version of ourselves. This is the way we know our values and we get excited to be able to show up and to talk about them. This is what empowers us to have hard conversations with big groups of people who don't want the kind of change that we need to make. So my initial work with Mineral was about bringing integral psychology into creative leadership coaching. But as a designer, I didn't want to just talk about this process. I wanted to design ways for people to experience the encounter in a different way. So this, among some other synchronicities, brought me into work that I'm building my dissertation around right now. Augmented reality to see inside the body. It builds on what we know about biomechanics and the nervous system to visualize how energy moves through the body in patterns, and also has a heat map of where emotions are commonly stored in the body. And this is an interesting gateway because once you realize you can visualize how you're feeling in that inner world, you can change the visual to suit how you might be feeling. You can also change how you feel. And when you realize this interplay and how much control you have over how you're feeling, amplifying energy, diminishing energy, it starts to feel really powerful. Suddenly you realize if you can keep calm and carry on, you could probably do anything. So it also becomes important to figure out, what am I carrying on toward? That's another cosmic joke. A lot of the times what we think we want, we start doing it like, didn't turn out to be exactly what I wanted. And I think at this point I've had a couple hundred conversations and seeing how the development works. Last year I ended up designing the second product, the Field Guide to the Psyche. And in this one, we go through just really a series of questions. It really is a conversation to understand a little bit of the patterns in what's exciting, the patterns in what's triggering. And every time, there's always a pattern. There's always a thread. And that's the issue under the issue. That's what the psyche or the soul wants to bring to the conversation. These are the things that you might not be paying attention to because you're moving very quickly to get all your work done and take care of the kids and enjoy spring and all the things. And yet, the path that is most authentic to you is kind of right there, bubbling beneath the surface. I think creative fulfillment hinges on our ability to recognize that, to cultivate that, and to share it publicly. I think when we follow our passions and our interests, we find that the purpose in our work starts opening doors. It breaks through every glass ceiling. Robert Fritz talked about how truly creative people use the gap between the vision and current reality, like use this creative tension to generate energy for change. It's not what the vision is, it's what the vision does. I think we find that there's this spark that wants to be known. There's this life that's bubbling just beneath the surface. And it's the difference between the life that you are living and the life that wants to be lived. So I hope that if you take anything from this talk, that you lean into that, let it move you, let it lead you to the life you want to live on purpose. Thank you.
Give her a round of applause, y'all. Thank you so much, Bryn. That was incredible. I'm going to give about 5-10 minutes for Q&A, around 3 or 4. So if anyone has a question, please go ahead.
So do you see that as something that necessarily you don't want to change but turn into more helpful energy? I just wanted to explain that more. My approach to it would be feel the feelings and just have a conversation. I think it's important to understand why the feelings are there. But I guess a lot of my work tends to always look for the issue under the issue. And the feeling is at the surface, the reason for the feeling a little deeper. And when you understand the reason for the feeling, you can negotiate with that. A lot of the times, the reason for the feeling, it's not real, it's old news. It's, I think, it's a conversation, and once you've had it, you can move on.
Hi, I'm curious to know what your workspace looks like, and is there a particular time of day that you feel more creative?
So I feel most creative when I very first wake up before I do anything. I try to make some notes. I keep track of my dreams also. So I make some notes about my dreams, and then usually I have some notes about something else I'm working on. And I do it on my phone just because I do it. So my workspace, I guess the space that I'm spending the most time in right now is just filled with books. I've been back in academic community for like 5 or 6 years, and I'm getting deeper into research, and I have to write a dissertation still. So it's just piles of books and paper.
Hey, first of all, I wanted to acknowledge your multidisciplinary approach. Like, super cool to be able to tie all those things together. And I guess my question is, where do you find that line between a world where we have so much bombardment of new information and taking that all in and knowing, like, okay, this is for me, and then finding that through line? Right?
Yeah.
It's great to have a lot of disciplines, but if you can't find that through line, then you just end up feeling scattered. Kind of, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think time is the answer. Time is also the most limited resource. So for me, I have tended to follow my enthusiasm as much as I can. I definitely get overwhelmed and have a lot of projects, and have gotten better about pruning things out and gotten better about saying no to things I don't want to work on and trusting that I'll figure it out. And then I make a lot of notes and do a lot of work, and I do tend to go back and review things, and I look for patterns. I think that's maybe, if anything, that's my superpower, is I love pattern analysis. And so I'll just kind of go back and look at things and see what I could fit together, and sometimes see what was a big waste of time. Let it go.
I feel like a lot of young people are like really stuck in the matrix. Like, we're really stuck to our devices, or we're stuck to our emotion of like, I'm so sad, or like I choose not to be happy here. So when you're talking about like choosing those emotions, or like trying to find your reality, I really relate to that. I think like, how could we give more advice and like create that like learning environment for younger people to see the world like that?
Yeah. The path for me to have, I guess, a little more context about where I'm at in the matrix, because it happens, right, is being in the body. And that's, I think, a large part of why my first big project, as I've moved into all this psychological domain, was about the body. I think it's a gateway, and a lot of people like to do things that are physical. And so I think that we just encourage more of that. And I'm a parent also, and I even think about ways that I encourage these things with my kids, and just opening up conversations about the different perspective you might think, or a different perspective you might have after feeling something versus just thinking about it.
I see a hand, and then we can go over here.
My question's a little bit adjacent about paying attention to your body. I was just wondering if you've seen any parallel to paying attention to how the energy moves and where it is, and how you use it to inform decision making about kind of finding your vision in the next thing. And along with that, if you have any practices for paying attention that have been.
Yeah, all of that, yes. Are there any human design fans? I think it's interesting. There's just different. We're all different, right? And how our patterns work. For me, I have to let things settle, and I will actually consider. When I'm stressed, I tend to feel it in my upper chest, and I will actually consider, dropping it down. Sometimes completely out of my feet, and definitely feel more settled in that way. Doing some things to regulate the vagus nerve. I don't know if anybody's heard of this. It's kind of popular now, but it's very nerdy. There's really only 4 techniques that I think work. You can tell me if there's others that I don't know about, but I feel like everything's kind of a derivative of 4 things. I mean, breathing is huge, and just being able to breathe deeply, and there's a whole bunch of techniques and different breath work to try. Like pressure, hugs, gravity blankets, that's also a relief. Shifting from side to side, which I think even going for a walk or something. And then, sounds that are humming, even singing your favorite song. You hear moms like, shh, shh, shh. These types of things also calm that nerve. So those are just a few things to do before you get up here and do your creative morning talk. Mm-hmm.
How do you approach being the one to kind of address that fear? Like, do you lean into it? Do you try and refute it?
So I just try to know what I'm talking about, and then I own it. And sometimes I will visualize owning the room before I walk in, and I try to smile at people so they'll smile back at me. There was a CTO that I worked with a long time ago, and he would often deliver very bad news, but he'd always do it with a smile. And I just watched how people received that. I've never really studied theater or anything, but I feel as though there's all these techniques that actors know, and they probably are the perfect things to get through that. But for the fear, just planning, practicing, knowing, and build your confidence. Because I think of anything, when you say something confidently, people will pay attention.
Any other questions? We have a little time. Okay, go ahead.
So you do a lot of creative work, a lot of human design, all these things that very up here, abstract concepts. And when you work with Fortune 500 companies and these bigger companies who are very numbers driven, and what's the result, what's the return on investment?
Mm-hmm.
How have you found a way to really break that?
Yeah. Well, I also love math and I love money. So that helps. I think that, I think another thing I've realized about myself is I like right brain, left brain, both. And I guess, the good thing about parallel paths and, it's not what the vision is, what the vision does, all these things, if there's something you want to do, you just have to throw everything at it. And so, I think creativity is a massive superpower because you can change people's mind without them even realizing it if you can connect with their heart. And then you just put the analytics on there and show them the numbers, show them the money, and they're going to say yes. So.
All right. Anyone else before? One more? Okay, go ahead.
I can sort of feel right of failure, the concept of failure, how there is no such thing as failure, but it's also not optional through what you talked about. Do you have any feelings about failure?
Yeah, I don't like failure, but I guess that's your question is reminding me why maybe I love to go back and look through all that work and look through things that maybe failed to do what I wanted to do at the time, and realize it was an important building block for something else. And I've just been doing this long enough now that I guess I'm more comfortable with things not working out as I expect. In fact, I think I'm to the point now of realizing nothing is going to work out how I expect. Sometimes it's a little better, sometimes it's worse, but if I really love it, I just keep going.
One more. So in your process, you mentioned that revisiting past experiences is very important for your process again. Do you have a system to archive that thing and being able to go back in time and get all those, let's say, past experiences and process it back again, or you're random?
It's not random. I have maybe too many systems, which becomes random. It's also over time. The past handful of years, I've had really tight systems because, part of why I went back to grad school was because I felt like design research that we do in professional studios is different than academic research that you can get big grants for. And so being very organized about what you're exploring, what you're learning, and how you make sense of that is critical. And so I've just kind of applied that to many things. And the tools that I use in working with clients for all this pattern analysis, dream analysis, design thinking, I use all these things on myself too. And early on, I realized that if the systems could teach me something about myself that I didn't already know, that is powerful. And then, as creatives, we probably all have our folder systems and our workflows and all of that, which is good. We have a lot of useful stuff documented and archived. So go back and check it out this weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bryn. Give her a round of applause. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much for all of the insights. This was awesome.